Good morning. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our coffee conversations here at Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center. This is the first time we've done one in the afternoon, so super excited to have a new vibe to talk about an exciting topic with LeeAnn Davis, Forge volunteer, breast cancer survivor, certified Pilates instructor, and she's going to tell us even more about her and her journey with breast cancer, but also just the benefits of Pilates with breast cancer. And so really excited to have you here, LeeAnn. So if you could just tell us a little bit about you.
Yes. Hey, my name is LeeAnn. I am 45. I have been a Pilates instructor for just about 2 to 3 years and breast cancer survivor. I'll be celebrating 13 years in a couple weeks. Next week, 13 years survivor. Yay. So was diagnosed really young at the age of 32. I had a 2 and 4-year-old at the time, and just discovered the lump myself. And because of my age, and I had been pregnant and nursing babies for a couple of years, and they, doctors originally were like, it's fine, it's just hormonal changes. And so actually sent me home. I did an ultrasound, but 2 radiologists read it and said that it was fine and sent me home. And then got a call about 3 weeks later saying that they wanted me to come back in, and just, that kind of got the ball rolling. So was diagnosed with cancer, stage 3, and it had already, gone to my lymph nodes. And so spent about a year going through treatment, did chemo first, then surgery, then radiation, and then a year of another IV drug that was specific for the type of cancer that I had. And since then, I've had 2 more children and have just, had a fairly clean bill of health. There's always things that crop up, but very thankful to, be here and be surviving and thriving. So
How did you find out about Forge, and get connected with us?
So Lauren, the director of Forge, is actually, she comes to some of the Pilates classes that I teach. And so I met her through that. And somehow I got brought up. She was having some issues with a shoulder, and I was just telling her, I've had breast cancer, and, after all that we go through, just depending on your, level of all the interventions that you have to have, but I had quite a few. And so still just, have some lingering, we're always going to be left with some residual side effects. And so was just telling her about my right shoulder, I have got some more tightness and weakness on that side. And she said, oh, you're a breast cancer survivor. She's like, I'm the director of Forge. And so that is how, that's my connection to Forge, just through Lauren.
So I'm so glad that she, came to your class and you got connected with us. It's been such a joy to have you.
Thank you.
So for those who are new to this world, breast cancer or just physical activities that you can do, could you kind of tell everybody what is Pilates?
Sure. So Pilates is, the name comes from Joseph Pilates, who developed this method over 100 years ago. And it's not known for sure, but people think that he developed it while he was in some kind of like prison camps in Germany during World War I think. And he was just trying to kind of rehab himself and these other men who were not able to really get a lot of physical activity. And so he kind of developed these machines that we still use a version of today, with different springs and handles and just ways to kind of keep the body moving and to strengthen the muscles. And so he actually just such a brilliant man without, this is before x-rays and before we knew a lot about the body, but he developed a lot of these exercises and was very much a proponent of spinal health and moving the spine in different ways. And so there's 4 directions that the spine can move into. And he, developed these exercises in order to just get, full range of the body. And really, when you do Pilates, it's a full body experience. So we don't just work, the arms or the legs or the abs. It is, people do say it is such a good core workout, and it is because you learn how to brace and stabilize with your core throughout every single exercise. So you do develop those deeper core muscles that actually help to support the spine. They wrap around the spine and are kind of like a little corset for the torso. And so anyway, he developed this method, and he ended up moving to New York and became really popular with the dancers. There was a dance studio next to his little Pilates studio, and all the dancers would come and he would train the dancers. And after his death, the method kind of died off. There was kind of like 5 people who banded together and said, we can't let this die. This is great, great information and so beneficial. And so really just a handful of people kind of kept it alive. And from there, I mean, now it is, international. Everybody in the world does it, knows about it. And the beautiful thing that I love about it, and why I feel like it helps me so much, is that you can be 90 years old. I literally have people 92, 93 that I see that we can modify and adapt these exercises to, all the way to professional level football players and golfers and hockey players. These professional level athletes are also doing it. And so the ways that you can, take an exercise from here to here, there's thousands of ways to modify and make it work for each individual person. And that is why I love it, because, after having breast cancer, I tried, I was young and was like, I want to do things, and I've got these kids to pick up, and I feel, my upper body feels so weak, and I struggled because everything that I did, it just didn't feel good for me. After having lymph nodes removed, and, there's certain things that I felt like that just doesn't feel right for me. That doesn't feel like a safe option, or I would do it. And instead of feeling stronger and better, I felt weaker and was in pain. And so when I discovered Pilates, it was like this beautiful, kind of moment. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I feel so good doing this. And, over time, I've just been able to regain so much strength that I had lost. I mean, for 10 years after going through treatment, I really wasn't able to do a lot. I mean, I would try things here and there, but nothing was sustainable. Nothing was something I could come back to over and over. And this felt so good. It felt, safe for me. It felt, I not only was feeling stronger, but I also felt more flexible, and I felt more mobile in my joints. And, that's just kind of the experience that it tends to give people. People are like, feel so good, after doing it. And so that is, really right after I started doing it, kind of did a whole 180 with my life. I changed careers and was like, I want to do this every day, and I want to help other people see how beneficial and how wonderful it can be.
And I'm glad that you did, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't think about more physical activity after going through so much physical trauma.
Yes.
Ultimately, you just think about, okay, like my body needs to recover, and what does that process look like? It can look so different for different people and whatever their treatments may be. And so at what point do people, like if they want to explore these types of options, like you said, to kind of help with those side effects of treatment?
Yeah.
At what point do they start to do the research and they start to ask the questions? Who do they ask to determine if it's safe for them to participate in it, and to what type of extremity? I think you said that there are ways that it can be kind of scaled back, depending on limitations.
Absolutely.
So, kind of tell us a little bit about like what that process can look like.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will touch on a little bit about, the emotional and physiological side of going through treatment, because I mean, after a year of all of these interventions and, surgery, radiation, all I wanted to do is wrap myself in a blanket and curl into a ball and say, nobody touch me. I don't want to move. I'm scared. That hurts. But really that's really the worst thing that we can do for our bodies. And so I will say, my passion is getting this information out to people. There is a special certification that I've gone through. It's called the Pink Ribbon Program. And I do have, a special certification to work with breast cancer survivors and learn the best way to approach each individual situation, because with breast cancer, it's not a one size fits all. Not everybody's having the same treatment. One person might have just a lumpectomy. One person might have a mastectomy, radiation, chemo, reconstruction using their own muscles. There's such a broad range, and knowing what is safe for each person, it can be a very kind of specialized thing. And so I would caution people and, say, if you are going to go try Pilates or just try, want to work with a personal trainer, something like that, definitely ask their credentials, ask if they have experience, what's their knowledge, because, I do think that people need to understand what a breast cancer patient survivor goes through and how that changes the body and permanently. There's permanent things that we all deal with after, and ways we need to work around that to make it, make exercise and movement safe for you. But there are things that everybody is able to do, and really starting as soon as you get doctor's clearance. I mean, if you don't have radiation, if you don't have surgery, you're just doing radiation, there's things that you need to be doing while you're in treatment, because that radiation is causing, it's going into the body and causing internal scarring and change of the tissues. And if you're not mobilizing that area and keeping it moving, then all of that is going to start to tighten down. And so that's when you can get, shoulder tightness and tightness through the chest wall, and even around the shoulder blades and your upper back, because that radiation energy goes all the way out through your skin on the other side. And so, it depends on each person's individual, what they are going through. But, after, if you're having surgery, usually doctors are giving you exercises that you can start within a few days, just, finger walking up the wall, stuff like that. And a lot of us, I know I probably crumpled that piece of paper up and threw it in the trash and didn't look at it and said, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to sit here. That hurts. And, but I really would want to encourage women, really, this is, it's important. We're talking about, if you don't work through it, the sooner you can get those areas moving and keep that tissue mobilizing, which just means that it's able to move around the way it should, the less issues long-term you're going to have to deal with. And typically by 6 weeks, a doctor is going to clear you to start some type of exercise program. I would definitely not run off to the gym and start lifting a bunch of heavy weights, but the Pink Ribbon Program is, specifically designed. It's like a 6-week program to start at whenever you get doctor's clearance, to just help restore that range of motion. You've got to restore the range of motion. Make sure that you're mobilizing first, and once that feels good, then you can start to strengthen. And so then you gradually mobilize, and then you gradually start to strengthen, and doing it in a way that's kind of in a progressive manner, where you're building up slowly and taking into account, what kind of surgeries and interventions each person has had, but I would say I had pretty much everything that you can have. I've had, bilateral mastectomy, 3 reconstructive surgeries, chemo, radiation, and I didn't start any of this until I was a 10-year survivor. And the amount of progress that I've made has really been incredible. It's very encouraging to say you can even be 10 years out and still, benefit from this. So.
Yeah, and that's good to know. And it kind of like leads it. You answered a bunch of questions that I was already thinking of. But, I think that it is important to know that there is no wrong time to start. Remaining active during your treatment certainly helps, but, everybody's just not in that place. And it doesn't always stem from them physically. It could just be the stress.
Yeah.
you know, and the emotional roller coaster the person goes through during those times.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really good that you pointed out it can start whenever, as long as you start doing something,
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
certainly help you, and that it's a process. It's not going to feel better after that first time or the
No.
second.
Yeah.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
Consistency is the key. So continuing to
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, consistency. And I think, just finding somebody that you do feel safe with. I think a lot of too, that 10-year gap was me not trusting the person in front of me. Does this person know if I do 20 reps of this, is this gonna make
Mhm.
me have lymphedema, or, like not trusting that other person, but, finding a safe place and somebody you feel comfortable with, because it's not always going to feel good, when you have tightness and maybe scarring and stuff like that. And, another great resource too, is just physical therapists, find physical therapist who is knowledgeable in this area, and they can help you, get that tissue mobilizing, that extremity mobilizing. That could be a great place to start if you can't find an exercise type of professional, but just finding somebody that you feel safe with, because that the psychological part of it is real. And we've had so much done to us, and like I said, we just want to kind of protect that area. We want to curl around it. It's it can feel intimidating and scary to start something like this. So
Yeah, and I'm one of those people, I don't like to like exercise in front of other folks.
yeah.
And so
Right.
like to imagine, so many different things happening to my body, to my mind, and then putting myself in a position where I'm like, oh my Lord, they're looking at how I can't do these push-ups. Like,
Yeah.
especially in a day and age where like everything's recorded, right? Sometimes just so many different thoughts can flood through your head, right?
Yeah.
And you can have all these different biases and all of these different ideas about what it's like.
Yeah.
So for those who do mind, I'm not saying I do, but for those who do have social anxiety or just anxiety in general from being around others, not that they wouldn't trust their instructor necessarily, but just the thought of being their new physical self in a public place when they're having that hard time with that new
Right.
body image. What are some tips that you would give to those individuals? Like, yes, I really need something. I need to do something. I want to work with a Pilates instructor, but I am not in a place where I can be around other people
Right.
while I'm trying to adjust to this new image of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's definitely, private sessions are definitely where you're just working one-on-one with somebody, or looking for a program maybe that has, it's just catered to breast cancer survivors. So, there might be a few other people in there, and typically those are going to be a smaller group setting. There might be other people, but these women have gone through, something similar. Also, I mean, YouTube is a great resource. There's a lot of, just kind of videos and stuff. You can look up, breast cancer survivor for Pilates or, and you can follow along with some of that if you're just kind of like interested in kind of what is this about, and maybe, trying it out on your own a little bit. And then if you feel, once you feel comfortable and want to kind of progress, I would definitely say, I always recommend, work with somebody, private, with a couple of private sessions. So you're just getting that one-on-one instruction, before kind of jumping into any kind of group class setting. I just think that, it's just kind of a safer approach, and you're going to get more out of it. Just doing a couple of one-on-one sessions. If that's not something that you could afford to do long-term, at least one or two.
Mhm.
And then, you could try to integrate into a more of a group setting.
So baby steps, right? Like do
And
what feels right.
yeah,
And sometimes, and I'm so grateful for YouTube. YouTube helped me through college, but like to be able
yeah,
to just have a resource that's available to you
yeah,
when you're not necessarily ready. And then
yeah,
maybe sometimes having a resource that you can look to help you kind of get your mind turning on different questions that you
yeah,
might have, or otherwise you probably wouldn't have realized to ask those questions until you got in person. And then
yeah,
maybe it might change your decision a little bit. It might
yeah.
change the way that you feel. LeeAnn, this has been wonderful, but before we end the recording, I wanted to know if you had any final thoughts or any advice that you would like to give to breast cancer survivors or anybody who's thinking about utilizing Pilates in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, well, I just think that I think I think Pilates is a great resource for, I mean, really everybody, but especially, breast cancer survivors. Cause like I said, there are things that might not necessarily be good options. I feel like, after it depends on your level of treatment, but there might just be things that aren't going to be safe for you, from here on out, or things that, it's just not the best choice for you anymore. So I do feel like Pilates is something that is really pretty safe for everybody. I mean, there's, certain situations, obviously there's always an exception to the rule, and there may just be, things that, oh, we're not going to do this exercise, we're going to modify it. That's across the board for everybody doing Pilates. There's always going to be something that's not good, for your individual body. But I love the fact that there's always a modification, there's always a way to change it and make it good for you. And another thing I wanted to mention is that I think Forge, I have not checked, but I have done at least one video for them. And then we're working on getting a couple more videos on the website, on Forge's website. So some Pilates type stuff and stretching and stuff like that. So that is another resource that y'all can turn to. And always feel free. I'm always around. I know everybody at Forge has my contact information. I would love to answer any questions if anybody ever wants to contact me directly. And just to kind of see, if anybody's has questions or just interested on how to start, and, all that whole process, I'm always happy to answer questions and talk to anybody. And then we might get back to, I was doing a monthly Pilates session at Forge, and I think we might start talk about getting that back on the schedule in the fall. So I would love to have anybody out that could make it to that.
Yes, I think that would be wonderful. And I am glad that we do have those videos for now. And then I know we're going to continue to build more.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you mentioned it. And yes, more and more is in the works. And I'm just so glad to have you as a resource in the community, not only as a Pilates instructor, but just as a breast cancer survivor, somebody who gets it on a level that others might not.
Yeah.
That is a huge benefit. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out today to tell us about Pilates and to share your journey and your expertise on the matter. We're very grateful, and we will see you again many, many more times.
Thank you. We're very grateful for Forge and all that you do for our community. So glad to be a part of that.
Thank you.